An understanding of our place in the universe and the true nature of our beings is forced upon us. For unless we grow, unless we reach that portion of our consciousness that reaches beyond the simple limitations of the human animal, we must either revert to our primitive surroundings through destroying our technological world, or indeed end our history as a species by making our world uninhabitable. I am a psychologist, and I know that there are depths of the mind that have remained untapped for most of us in our normal business of going about our affairs. I wanted to reach that portion of the mind of many people and find out what insights might lie there, unrecognized and unreported. And so she began her exploration. She chose hypnosis as her method as, quote, a way to move into the subconscious mind, into areas of consciousness normally blocked from our awareness, unquote. Her induction technique was the simple one of gradual relaxation. Relaxation is the attempt, and it is a successful attempt, to alter one's responses and one's level of awareness. We use the technique of the violet flame to alter consciousness. We can feel darkness move into light. We can feel ourselves moving from sickness to health, from depression to joy. It's a means of altering consciousness that is done by free will, where you are subject to your mighty I am presence in Christ self and not to the mind of another. Helen Wambach would have her subjects lying comfortably on a carpeted floor with pillows and blankets as required for personal comfort. Her instruction would begin with, quote, your eyes are closed and it feels good to close your eyes. The muscles of your face relax. The relaxation moves now from your facial muscles to your jaw muscles, and as your jaw muscles relax, your tongue falls to the base of your mouth, and so on through the entire body. Interestingly, Dr. Wambach discovered the phenomenon that when people's jaw muscles relax, the voice box relaxes, and as the speech centers relax, people appear to switch from the brain's speech centers, the temporal lobe on the left side of the brain, into the right brain, where dreams, artistic endeavors, and scientific insight often seem to originate. As she progressed with the deep relaxation, Dr. Wambach sent comforting thoughts to her subjects mentally, thoughts of well-being. Once they were in a state of deep relaxation, she would suggest that although the body was deeply relaxed, the mind would be unusually alert and the person would have easy access to his memories. Now, as constructive as these sessions might appear, especially from their results, we have the absolute and final and stern warning of the great divine director, not to subject oneself to hypnosis, not to give a hypnotic session, and not to engage in auto-hypnosis. When you meditate, when you go within the heart, when you follow the directions of meditation, everything that you receive becomes your personal attainment. It's an attainment that you attain to. When you do this under someone else, you are always subject to the entire contents of their consciousness. That is the problem with hypnosis. That when you place yourself in this completely passive mode, you become the recipient not only of the words of the hypnotist, but of the entire contents of the mind. Well, it's interesting, but you know we are all subject to a lot of hypnotism, especially through television. When you turn on television, you may have noticed that you might be watching a completely constructive program. There's not a thing wrong with it. And yet by the time it's over, the children in the household are in a state of chaos and discord, and things are feeling very uncomfortable. There are energies flying around the room, and everyone is kind of left feeling a little bit drained. This can happen even on the evening news, just through the advertising, which might be innocuous. The point is that a lot comes through the TV set that we don't see, we don't hear, we don't feel. It is subliminal. It may be planned or unplanned, but radio and television waves in themselves can transmit all kinds of things. So, if you're going to watch television, you have to put up a screen and see to it that your conscious mind, your Christ consciousness, is in command, and that you have a shield of light that is screening out all the harmful effects that come through the TV set, so that you can derive from it whatever information it is that you're desirous of having. That's an example of the total contents of whatever is coming forth, whether it's the subconscious mind of the actors, or the people performing, or everything that's behind them that is so unseen and sometimes so unknowable. Your individual path of attainment is more important to you than curiosity. Curiosity about past lives, curiosity about states of consciousness that your Christ mind has not led you to yet. When we're with the Ascended Masters, we follow the violet flame and we know it is sufficient to us. I would like to enter here my personal testimony that when I came to be trained as a messenger and I was received as a Chela of the Ascended Masters, step by step the Brotherhood revealed to me past incarnations. Some I had already remembered, some I had not. But I was taken very slowly as I was giving my decrees and cleaning up my life stream. Sometimes it's necessary for you to know, sometimes it's not. But when we seek these life readings, we have the problem of opening the entire Pandora's box of our human karma at once, and then having to deal with it, and it becomes a nightmare. So that is not the path of the Ascended Masters. However, we must recognize that for these people in this particular situation, they put themselves into this hypnosis by free will. They knew it was going to happen, and for them, it was beneficial within the context of their circumstance. Ultimately, it could lead them to the path of the Ascended Masters, where they would no longer need to probe in this manner. Strictly from the point of the results, then, we examine this. She had her subjects go back in memory and find a snapshot of themselves between the ages of 13 and 18 and focus in upon it in detail. She said to them, "Now look closely at what you are wearing in that picture. You will go back in time now. You are now wearing that outfit of clothes. Do you like that outfit? How does it feel on your body? What shoes do you wear? What shoes do you wear with that outfit?" The procedure was repeated with a picture taken between the ages of 6 and 12, and then back to one taken between the ages of 1 and 5. In the last case, she would have the person become vividly aware of what it felt like to be 3 years old, to be in that small body. I would like to tell you that this method of taking a snapshot, looking at yourself, meditating upon it, it's very easy to go back to the day that snapshot was taken, to tune in to your feelings, to your consciousness. There's certainly nothing wrong with taking out an album and spending a little time meditating with the violet flame, calling upon the law of forgiveness and the mighty action of the violet flame to transmute the entire cause and core record and memory of human consciousness in that given year, in that given cycle. You will have a few memories of that era of your life, but the majority will be subconscious. You can look at a picture and by the eye contact, calling upon your mighty eye and presence, direct the violet flame into it. This gives you a tremendous assistance in the resolution of problems and burdens and pains you may have experienced earlier in life. Then she would ask her subjects to mentally line up all 3 snapshots, as a young child, in middle childhood, and as an adolescent. And she would ask, what is it that has stayed the same? Your body changed, your clothes changed, the background of the pictures changed. What is it that remains you? Are all these stages of childhood still somewhere in your mind? She was assisting her subjects to discover the essential feeling of being me, which is very important. The essential feeling of being me shows you that from the cradle to the age of 80 or 90 or 100, it's still the same me. You may look in the mirror, you may look a little bit different, but you know you never feel different. You feel like you expand your awareness, you've learned a lot of things, you've had a lot of experiences. But if you could really regress in time and space, you would find that you had full God awareness at birth, before birth, and in the cradle. I have told our parents and teachers for many years that the children who are born, who seem helpless and unaware, have full adult awareness and full Christ consciousness in that cradle from the hour of birth and before. And I've had many communications myself with the children whom I've had and other people's children before they've come into embodiment, carried on full conscious conversations with them through God that shows us that life is a continuous stream of consciousness. So this exercise of looking at those photographs simply liberates you from feeling that you are your body. Then she would say to them, I want you to recognize now that each of these snapshots represents just 1/20th of a second of the time you have been alive in this lifetime. Beyond the picture of yourself as a young child, I want you to imagine a row of snapshots taken of all the other 1/20th of a second that you were alive from birth to the age of 5. See now that these snapshots would stretch to infinity. A microsecond, a 20th of a second for the taking of a snapshot, is like the impulse of energy flowing over your crystal cord. When you think of beads of light descending from your mighty I Am presence into your heart chakra, sustaining life in this octave. Sometimes I feel myself in meditation and an eye will blink, and I will realize that in that blinking of an eye, I am in another octave. I could experience life and death. The very life by which I am breathing and my heart is beating is contained in that single little microsecond. And when you think that each of those microseconds contains God's cosmic consciousness descending to you over the crystal cord, you realize the intensity of life, how great life is, and that what is called death itself is only the movement of this stream of consciousness to another plane of being, whereby it ceases to function through this particular physical body. This experience in meditation of transcending octaves and coming and going makes one extremely aware of how temporal life is in a given physical body, how tenuous it is, how fragile it is, how with the blinking of an eye one can be on the other side of the universe. It also gives us the sense of our own personal fluidity, like liquid moving in a mighty river of life. And this sense of being larger than our bodies, having preceded them, and that we will exceed them and go on beyond them, gives us a great sense of dominion even while we walk the earth within these bodies. It gives us a sense of having more to life than just the passage of time as a person. And in that larger sense, what happens to me in any case is that I want everyone else to have a larger dimension of being, because I see how limited is people's experience without it. And so I want to give my life that other people can become more independent of the body temple and retain what we have before we took embodiment, which is the going out and coming into this vehicle and then into vehicles of light. So Helen Wambach would continue with her subjects with other ages, making the vivid point that the past remembered is fragmentary and limited, and that lost in the endless rows of snapshots of their growing up years were potentials that had never developed, feelings that had long since been forgotten, options never realized. Well, when we think of many lifetimes and many snapshots and many 20ths of a second, and we realize all of the hopes and dreams and loves we've held in our hearts, and how many of them have been unfulfilled, and now we have the great flow of light from our mighty I Am presence and tremendous opportunity in the violet flame, how much of all the unfulfilled dreams of all our embodiments we can fulfill in this hour because of the gift of cosmic consciousness that comes to us through Saint Germain and Portia. Life then has so much more meaning to us. And this particular penetration of life by this one woman and these subjects will give to your loved ones also an expanded awareness, something that perhaps you've not been able to give to them before. And so whenever and however we can do that, it is leading them toward this dimensionless being, this vastness of life that is beyond time and space. Recognize that now at this moment your past is nearly as changeable as your future. This is something she tells her subjects while they are lying on the floor with their pillows and blankets. You may choose to remember parts of your past life since forgotten, and you may choose to realize their potential in a future that is also yours to choose. This is what is meant by free will. Now, I think this is a marvelous perception by a psychologist today. The fact that we understand we can change the past and the future. This is the meaning of free will. It's exactly the definition of Saint Germain. He came to us with the revolutionary concept that we could change history with the violet flame. Now listen to this. This is a very important concept. If you can't change history, you can't change the future. How? Why? Very simple. I'll take myself as an example, because I know the experience of my own human karma. If I would not put the violet flame through those past embodiments and these past experiences, I am not free in the present to do what I know I must do, and I'm not free to experience absolute liberation tomorrow, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, because I have these things pulling me from my past. They're like ghosts in my closet, previous pains, experiences, associations. I have to get through those associations. I have to balance that karma, or I'm not free today and I'm not free tomorrow. I can't even dream today about what I'm going to do tomorrow because I have the nightmares of the past that follow me, and I have to put the violet flame through them. So I have to change my past. And that is the meaning of free will. At this point in her session, Dr. Wambach would again remind her subjects that they were deeply relaxed with the mind free and light, floating alert. She would then have them imagine that they were a pinpoint of consciousness floating up away from the body and hovering near the ceiling of the room. Continuing the guided fantasy, she would suggest that they were floating out into the clear night sky, higher and higher. You feel marvelously light and free as you soar up and away. Now what she is doing is attempting to conduct them in an out-of-the-body experience. She becomes their mentor and therefore karmically accountable and responsible for this out-of-the-body experience. Nevertheless, I trust and I pray that she is overshadowed by the Ascended Masters. In our going out of the body and following the teachings given to us by Ito in the 7th lesson of the Keepers of the Flame, we know that we are overshadowed by the Guardian Angel, the Mighty I Am Presence, the Christ Self, and the Ascended Masters who are waiting for us at the Royal Teton Retreat. So it is not nearly so nebulous or dubious in the sense that we know where we are going, we know we are guided in the etheric octave, we know we are wearing our etheric body, and we are not apt to get caught in the astral plane. So that is why we need the guardianship of the hierarchy of light. But it's interesting that she stumbled on and created her own technique out of her own soul memory of trying to get souls to be body free, to be light, so they could have the experiences that she wants them to have. Now she would deepen the hypnotic state by giving the instruction to the subjects to reduce their brainwave electrical potentials down to 5 cycles per second, which is just above the sleep state according to biofeedback research mentioned by Dr. Wambach. Apparently at 1 to 4 cycles per second, subjects would not recall when they awoke, but at 5 cycles per second, recall was available to them. It's very interesting that at certain cycles per second, certain wavelengths, we remember out-of-the-body experiences, and at certain cycles we do not. What I would like to point out here is that the recall is still only of a certain wavelength. It is still linear. It still is a straight line. I don't believe that this technique or this book even approaches the spherical consciousness that we absorb when we are out of the body and when we are in the Ascended Master's consciousness. That particular experience out of the body at night is functioning at a level of the higher mind. And many are distressed that they do not have the remembrance of what they are experiencing out of the body. There is not a great deal of recall when you come home from the retreats. You do have joy. You do have a sense of bliss, creativity, new ideas. There are things you simply know. You know what's real, you know what's unreal. You know the Ascended Masters are real, and no one is going to talk you out of it. That is a recall, that is a memory. But it's not always specific. Then sometimes your own Christ self chooses to make these out-of-the-body experiences real by giving you a dream. And you think it's a dream, but it is not a dream. It is a real memory of a very specific experience you have had. So I'd like to show you that the reports that people give and the answers to the questions that she asked them in the hypnotic state are by no means complete. They by no means show the entire spectrum of Ascended Master law. And you should not think that someone coming out of this state is going to suddenly be omniscient about everything that is in the universe. There's a certain amount of limitation here, and you can't expect to find confirmation for every aspect of the Ascended Master's teachings that we know. But there are very important confirmations that are pertinent, especially as you discuss this with loved ones. At this time, when people are in this hypnotic state, Dr. Wambach would begin to ask her questions, approximately 1 every 5 seconds. suggesting to the participants that they would flash on and clearly remember their answers. I want you to go now to the time just before you were born into your current life. Are you choosing to be born? Does anyone help you choose? If anyone helps you choose, what is your relationship to the counselor? How do you feel about the prospect of living this coming lifetime? Are you choosing the last half of the 20th century to experience physical life for a reason? What is that reason? Have you chosen your sex for this coming lifetime? If you have, why have you chosen to focus as a man or as a woman in this lifetime? What is your purpose for coming into this, your current lifetime? Are you aware now, before you are born, of others that you will know in the coming lifetime? Have you known them in past lifetimes? Do you know what role they will play in your coming life? Will you know them as lovers or mates? Will you know them as children or other relatives? Will you know them as friends? In the questions about relationships, Dr. Wambach would allow a minute between each of the questions because of the amount of material available to explore. As you can imagine, these are revolutionary questions. Revolutionary questions. Remember, they were asked of 750 subjects. She has further questions on the relationship to the developing fetus and the birth process. She says, now I want you to direct your attention to the developing fetus who will be you. Are you experiencing inside the fetus, outside the fetus, in and out? When does your consciousness fully join that of the fetus? Tremendous question for the subject of abortion. Are you aware of the attitudes and feelings of your mother just prior to your birth? Now you are moving down the birth canal. You will have no pain, but you will be aware of sensations. Now you are moving down the birth canal. What are you experiencing now? Now you have emerged from the birth canal. You've been born. What are you experiencing now? Are you aware of the attitudes and feelings of others in the delivery room after your birth? Some of you have heard me speak about memories prior to birth. You've heard me say that I remembered swimming in the womb. I can remember and I have recalled experiences in the womb in previous lifetimes. I've gone back to previous lifetimes, remembered who my parents were, remembered being in the womb, remembered what my thoughts were before coming into that embodiment and how I related to my parents. I've been quoted as saying these things in the papers or on talk shows, and it has been with a certain amount of disbelief. And so here these questions are being asked, people are answering them, and all of a sudden what the masters have been saying, what you've had the courage to stand up for, what I've been willing to say in public is suddenly documented through this book. So when she concludes her questions, Dr. Wambach suggests to the subjects that they are floating up and away from the delivery room, back up into space, back up to their cloud. And her next instruction would be intervention to remove any feelings of sadness or pain. She would say, now you are floating on your cloud, and I'm taking you deeper. As I count, you will become more and more peaceful and serene. Your mind is floating free, and you have a feeling of peace and harmony around you. You are floating on your cloud now, and there's a beautiful white light all around you. The light is very pure and intense, and it's growing brighter. That kind of suggestion certainly does give the opportunity to the Christ self to unfold the person, because even speaking of the white light draws the light of the I Am Presence. Then she says to her subjects, there's a tightly budded rose in your solar plexus. Rays of energy from the light gently unfurl the petals of the rose until the heart of the rose is exposed. Dancing rays of energy from the light flood into the heart of the rose, and through the rose, move through your solar plexus. The energy waves from the light wipe away any negative after effects from your experience on this trip. The waves of light energy bring a lightness, peace, and serenity to your mind and your body. This is certainly as constructive as anyone could expect a psychologist to be. Dr. Wambach mentions that the solar plexus is the energy center which controls the emotions. and describes this meditation as bringing the energy of the universe in to harmonize any disturbances in the solar plexus chakra. Now she would bring her participants back to conscious awareness with the suggestion that as they return to the here and now, they would have full memory of the answers that flashed in their minds to the questions asked during the session. Now picture to yourself a ball of golden energy sparkling out in a far corner of space. Picture that energy rolling and flowing down to the darkness of space, penetrating the atmospheric envelope of Earth, coming down to the Western Hemisphere and coming down to this room and entering the crown of your head. As the energy enters the crown of your head, a sense of well-being sweeps through you and all your bodily energies are restored. You are in a very good humor when you wake up and you feel great. On the count of 10, subjects are asked to open their eyes. Dr. Wambach's subjects would then fill out their data sheets. The birth experience was the third hypnotic trip induced during the research session. The earlier two were on the recall of past lives. An example of a data sheet filled out by one person in a research session conducted by Dr. Wambach in Chicago is as follows. Quote, "Yes, I chose to be born, but a high council seemed to be helping me make the decision. I was excited at the prospect of living in this lifetime and felt that my purpose was to help others. When you asked about the 20th century, it flashed in my mind that this was the era of outer space, and that was why it was important for me, but I don't know why that should have come to my mind. I did choose my sex because the male is dominant, and apparently I needed that in this lifetime. I did not know my mother from a past life, but my father was in a lifetime in Egypt with me. I also seemed to know some friends who were people I commended at some past time period. I attached to the fetus only after it was fully formed, just before birth. I did feel warmth from my mother's body and her fear of the birth while I was in the womb. The birth canal experience was one of no pain, but a sliding feeling with a light at the end of the tunnel. My impression after birth was that my skin was blue and I was very, very cold. The doctor was laughing. I'd like to point out to you that in this recall, the memory is the attachment to the fetus only after it was fully formed, just before birth. That is the memory of that wavelength of consciousness. There is the soul consciousness. There is the Christ consciousness. There's the higher etheric body all integrating. You'll hear this said a number of times by these people, and it's hard to understand. You'll hear them say that they selected bodies after the fetus was formed. They selected them to enter them. Well, you know this is not possible. There's a council, there's a meeting, there are parents that come together and agree to sponsor a child, and the genes and chromosomes and all things coming together through the parents have to do mathematically in minute detail with the karma of the incoming life stream. And of course, you are you and all of your features, your auric emanations, your body, your size, even the type of fingernails, the type of hands, the lines on your hands, all have to do with your karma. So evidently and obviously, prior to conception, there is the assignment of souls to particular parents and to the cooperation of the father, the mother, the incoming child, and the Holy Spirit to the formation of that body. This was not in the recall because it takes a far more advanced state of consciousness in the superconscious mind to remember the activities of the Christ plane, the plane of the I Am Presence, and the plane of the etheric. A contrasting account is given by a person who resisted the process of living another lifetime. Quote, "I didn't choose to be born, and I thought when you asked that question, oh no, not again. I'm so comfortable here, wherever here might be. I did have help in choosing. 2 counselors showed me how my mother would want me, and my mother-to-be wanted me so much. She would guard and love me so it would be all okay. I felt they were reassuring me. My feeling about the prospect of being born was I felt I had served well in my last life and I wanted a rest, and felt it was too soon to return because it would be rather traumatic. When you asked about purposes for this lifetime, I felt that I am here to make people happy in an everyday sense. The purpose came through not to be super religious or anything, but just to create a sense of happiness in the people I would be with. When you asked about choosing the time period to be born, I sensed troubled times and the last of a kind of era. I knew it would be rough, and that's one reason I hesitated to be born. When you asked about choosing the sex, I flashed immediately. I had chosen to be a woman because it is easier to make people happy by being female. I did know my mother from a past life, but my father seemed very vague. My husband I knew in a past life, but I didn't know my children. One friend came through as someone I'd known well in a past life. I was aware before my birth that my mother was very happy and wanted me so much. Knowing that gave me courage to come. I got no impression as to when I was attached to the fetus. My impression after birth was of extreme cold and of a feeling, now what?